They smiled when I explained my business plan. Not proud smiles, careful ones. My father said family money shouldn't be wasted on experiments. My mother said I should support my cousin instead. He's safer, she said. So I built my company alone. I worked nights, missed holidays, drained my savings. They never asked how it was going. Then my cousin's business collapsed. At dinner, my mother raised her glass and said, "We have to protect what we have now." She was talking about my company. In that moment, I understood something chilling. They didn't believe in my business. They only wanted ownership after the risk was gone. When I first talked about starting my business, it wasn't dramatic. No big announcement. No pitch deck on the kitchen table. It came up during a normal visit. Coffee going cold. My parents sitting across from me, listening with polite distance. I explained the idea simply. What I wanted to build. How I planned to fund it. Where the risks were. I wasn't asking for money. I was asking for support. Advice. Maybe belief. My father leaned back and folded his arms. He said business ruins families. My mother nodded and said investing should stay within the family. Then she mentioned my cousin. He had an idea too. A familiar one. One my parents had already helped with. They said it made more sense to back him. He was steady. He was responsible. He was not like me. I suggested splitting my investment. Some toward my cousin, some toward myself. That's when the tone shifted. My father said I was being selfish. My mother said I was chasing ego. They didn't argue about numbers. They argued about trust. In the end, they made it clear. No support. No encouragement. No safety net. Just warnings. So I did what I'd always done. I adjusted. I refinanced my apartment. Pulled from savings I'd planned to keep untouched. Took on freelance work at night to keep cash moving. I didn't tell them the details. They didn't ask. When my cousins struggled early on, my parents stepped in. They covered shortfalls, made calls, smoothed things over. When I struggled, I stayed quiet. There were months when I barely slept. Months where payroll came before groceries. Months where I questioned whether they'd been right. Through all of it, my phone stayed silent. No check-ins. No curiosity. At family gatherings, my business was treated like a phase, something I'd outgrow once I failed. My mother would ask my cousin how things were going. My father would talk about our investment. When someone asked about me, my mother would say, "She's trying something." Trying, not building, not leading, just trying. I didn't correct her, because at the time, I still believed effort would speak for itself. I didn't know yet that success doesn't rewrite history. It exposes who is waiting to claim it. The first year nearly broke me. Not in a dramatic way. In the quiet, grinding way that leaves no marks. Invoices went out late because clients hesitated. Vendors wanted proof I didn't have yet. Every decision carried weight because there was no one to absorb mistakes but me. When I mentioned stress at home, my mother said that was why she'd warned me. When I skipped a holiday to meet a deadline, my father said family should come first. They never connected those comments to the fact that they had chosen where support went. My cousin's business limped along with help. Missed targets were called setbacks. Losses were temporary. My losses were lessons. My cousins were circumstances. I stopped sharing updates. Not out of spite, out of exhaustion. At work events, people started recognizing my company name. Not loudly, just enough to matter. I landed a contract that stabilized cash flow. Then another. Nothing flashy. Just momentum. That's when the tone at home changed. My mother began asking questions that sounded like interest. "How's work going?" "Are you still doing that project?" I answered briefly. Around the same time, my cousin's business began missing payments. Then deadlines. Then credibility. My parents were suddenly anxious. Phone calls came more often. Not about me. About contingency. At dinner one night, my father said we needed to be realistic about family assets. He spoke carefully, like words could soften intent. My mother nodded and said we all needed to protect what we had built. She used the word "we" easily, like practice. No one mentioned the nights I slept in my office, the savings I drained, the years I carried alone. They spoke as if my success had appeared fully formed, as if risk was a phase that had passed without consequence. I watched them talk around me, plan without asking, assume without permission. I realized then that this wasn't about pride or recognition. It was about access. They hadn't believed in my business when belief cost something. Now that it worked, they wanted proximity. The pattern was clear. Failure was mine to own. Success was ours to share. I didn't interrupt. I didn't correct them. I went home and reviewed my company documents. Ownership, shares, decision rights. For the first time, I read them slowly. And I understood something important. Support withheld early doesn't get claimed later. Not quietly, not politely. The moment I saw that clearly, I stopped explaining anything at all. The boundary was crossed during a casual conversation. We were sitting in my parents' living room. No tension, no raised voices, just coffee and small talk. My father said my cousin might need temporary involvement in my company. My mother added that it would make sense for family unity. They didn't ask. They framed it as logic. I asked what involvement meant. My father said guidance. My mother said oversight. My cousin stayed quiet. Then my mother said it clearly. If anything happens to you, this should stay in the family. That was the moment. They weren't talking about helping. They were talking about control. I felt something settle in me. Not anger, not panic, certainty. I said no, calmly, once. The room stiffened. My father said I was being ungrateful. My mother said I was forgetting who raised me. They reminded me of the help they'd given my cousin. They said it was only fair. Fair. I didn't argue. I didn't list sacrifices. I didn't justify myself. I stood up, thanked them for the coffee, and left. That night, I updated my legal documents, adjusted beneficiaries, reviewed shareholder protections. I stopped answering calls immediately. I stopped explaining delays. The next family gathering happened without me. I heard later that my mother said I'd changed. That success had made me cold. She wasn't wrong, but not in the way she meant. I had stopped asking to be included in decisions that treated me like an asset. For the first time, I understood that belonging shouldn't require surrender, and I wasn't willing to surrender anything else. The consequences unfolded without drama. They always do when systems replace assumptions. My parents didn't confront me directly. Instead, they tested limits. My mother asked for financial advice on behalf of the family. My father mentioned tax efficiency, casually like it was a shared concern. I answered politely and briefly, then stopped engaging. My cousin reached out once. He asked if I could help him transition into something stable. I said I hoped he found the right opportunity. I didn't offer one. Without access, their language changed. At a family dinner I didn't attend, my mother corrected herself mid-sentence when she said, "we," and realized no one else picked it up. My father stopped mentioning my company entirely. Silence replaced entitlement. Meanwhile, my business kept moving. Contracts renewed. A small team grew. Decisions stayed clean because they stayed mine. I learned how peaceful progress feels when it isn't negotiated at every step. Months later, my mother sent a message. Not an apology, a question. "Are you upset with us?" I read it once and closed the app. I wasn't upset. I was finished explaining. They didn't lose me because I refused to invest in my cousin. They lost access because they tried to rewrite risk as loyalty and success as shared property. I still show up to holidays sometimes. I'm polite. I'm distant. I don't discuss work. They don't ask anymore. What changed wasn't my success. It was my silence, the kind that doesn't wait to be filled. I used to think proving myself would earn respect. Now I know respect shows up before the proof. My company didn't just survive without them. It became clearer. And so did I.